Hello and welcome back to Saxon Math. This is lesson 88, using proportions to solve ratio word problems. Proportions can be used to solve many types of word problems. In this lesson, we will use proportions to solve ratio word problems, such as those in the following example. The ratio of salamanders to frogs was 5 to 7. If there were 20 salamanders, how many frogs were there? So using the ratio 5 to 7, you can see that salamanders to frogs is still in the same order. So salamanders to frogs has to be from 5 to 7. It has to be equal to that. So what we've done in the past is use these proportions to determine the missing element. Well, this is the same thing we're doing here. We're just putting it in a ratio box. So you have your ratio of salamanders here, and you have your frogs here. And this is the ratio, and this would actually be the actual numbers. So this box right here is the actual numbers. This would be the ratio of those. So we're looking at 5 to 7. You can do the math by, if you wanted to, you could do 5f equals 20 times 7 to find out what f equals. You could also do this. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that means 5 times 4 is 20. You have to multiply this times 4 to determine what f is going to be equal to. So 7 times 4 means that f is 28. So that means there were 28 frogs in the real world. If there were 20 salamanders, and the ratio was 5 to 7 as we started out. So in this problem, there are two kinds of numbers: ratio numbers and actual count numbers. The ratio numbers are 5 to 7, and the number 20 is an actual count of the salamanders. We will arrange these numbers in 2 columns and 2 rows to form a ratio box, just like we did there. 5 to 7, actual count 20, and an unknown number of frogs. We were not given the actual count of frogs, so we used the letter F to stand for the actual number of frogs. Any letter in the alphabet would work, but F makes sense because that's what frogs starts with. Instead of using scale factors in this lesson, we will practice using proportions. We use the positions of the numbers in the ratio box to write a proportion. By solving the proportion, we find the actual number of frogs. So once you've got that, you can see that 5f equals 7 times 20, and 5 divided by 5 would make f be by itself on one side, and 7 times 20 divided by 5 would work out like this. 20 divided by 5 is 4, and 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 4 times 7 makes 28. There would be 28 actual frogs. Example 2. If 3 sacks of concrete will make 12 square feet of sidewalk, predict how many sacks of concrete are needed to make 40 square feet of sidewalk. So if you have your ratio, we have 3 sacks of concrete will make 12 feet of sidewalk. So this is an actual count. So we have got to put that in the actual box, and this would be a ratio. If we're looking at this in the sense of a ratio, it's 3 to some amount will make actual count of 12 feet. Now we're looking for what will make 40 feet, square feet of sidewalk. So this would be feet squared. This would also be feet squared. And this is the unknown amount. So how many sacks? So in this case, you can see they used it slightly different here. If we were given the ratio of 3 to 12, I can still find the answer to this unknown here by taking 3 times 4, and 40 divided by 4, this would have to be times 4. So whatever this times that would make 10 in this position. So you see you would still end up with the same answer, even though we have it different than what the textbook has placed. We still end up with 10 sacks of concrete needed. So if our ratio is 3 to 10, the actual amount of concrete created from it would be 12 to 40. So it still works out in that way. But in here, the solution, they said, we are given the ratio of 3 sacks to 12 square feet. And the actual count of square feet of the sidewalk is needed. So we didn't know, in this case, it's saying that if we use 3 sacks out of 12 square feet, that's the ratio that they were using. And the actual count of the square footage of sidewalk is 40. And the constant factor from the first ratio to the second is not obvious. So you can use the cross multiplication there. So you can see that 3 times 40 is 120. And that would be divided by 12. 120 divided by 12 is 10. All right, let's try this. The ratio of DVDs to CDs was 5 to 4. If there were 60 CDs, how many DVDs were there? So we've got to go in this order. We're going to go DVDs to CDs. So DVDs and then CDs right here. And it goes from 5 to 4. And it says there were 60 actual CDs. So that's this number right here, 60 in the actual count. We don't know how many DVDs there were, so I'm just going to use the letter D for the unknown number of DVDs. Now I can work this out. I have 5 is to 4 as an unknown number of DVDs is to 60 CDs. So now I can cross multiply. 5 times 60 would be 300. That means that this also has to equal 300 if we multiplied it. So 4 times D equals 300, which means I have to divide by 4 and divide by 4 on this side. I now have 300 divided by 4, which is the same as 8, which gets me to 27. Subtract that, that'd be 3. Bring this down, that'd be 30. 30 would be, sorry, not 8. I gotta go back. I'm gonna backtrack. It is 7. So 7, 4 times 7 is 28, which would get me to 30. This would be 7, which would get me to 28. And I would have 2 left over and 4. So the actual count of CDs or DVDs would be 77 and a half. And that doesn't seem like it makes any sense. 5 times 60. Let me look at this. It doesn't make any sense that we'd only have half of a DVD. So 4 times D equals 300. And 300 divided by 4, 7 times 4 would be 28. 7 times, or 8 times 4 would be 32. So this would be 20 right here. So that's where the error came in. So I just made one error in my division there. Let's go backwards. We've got 30 divided by 2, or subtract 28 makes 20. That's where my error was. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And 5 times 4 makes 20. And that would be 0. So 75, that makes better sense. You can't exactly have half of a DVD. So D would equal 75. All right, so that would be the answer. How many DVDs there were? Let's try this one, letter B. At the softball game, the ratio of fans for the home team to the fans for the away team is 5 to 3. If there are 30 fans for the home team, how many fans for the away team are there? How can you check your answer? So for this, we have the fans for the home team to the fans for the away team. So I'm going to put home, and I'm going to label this away. And I have to have it in that order from 5 to 3. And there are 30 fans for the home team, so the actual count is 30 here. And we need to find out how many fans there were for the away team. So I'm going to use A for away. And again, I could do the constant factor here. The factor would be 5 times 6 would make 30. So 3 times 6 will give me A. A should be 18 in this case. So the number of away fans would be 18. I can check my answer by taking 5 or 30 times 3, which equals 90, because it should be this. These ratios should be proportionate. So if I took 3 times 30, that equals 90. I have to multiply 5 times 18 and hopefully get 90 as well. So 5 times 8 is 40, and 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 makes 90. So that would be correct. This would mean that the away team would have 18 fans. All right, that's it for today. Excellent work. I'm glad we were able to work out an error. It's good to see some issues and work through them sometimes. So hopefully you guys learned something. If you didn't, rewind it and review it, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to do written practice problems 1 through 30. It's very important that you do all 30 problems in Saxon math. It's the only way you learn anything. All right. Have a good night. Have a good night.